Winter is coming. What's up, FTFers? I just wanted to take the time to talk to you a little bit about winter prep for your vehicle, because I'm going up to Chicago here at Thanksgiving, and I just want to make sure that I'm ready in my vehicle. Something that I had to do when I was a first responder was I didn't know where I was going to go. When you're on a paramilitary search and rescue team, you have to be prepared to stay there, shelter in place, and still be able to supply yourself with all the stuff that you need to not just help yourself, but to help your team and help the people that you're there to rescue. But you need to be able to sustain that in case you get stuck in that zone. And so that's something that I've always tried to carry over since I retired, is to make sure that, you know, I am prepared for the worst and I'm still hoping for the best. And I figure the best time to prepare is before the emergency happens, right? So I was trying to get some stuff ready, and I thought, hey, common sense isn't so common, they say, but maybe you just need a friendly reminder of what you might want to put into your vehicle, because a lot of this stuff is common sense. It just makes sense to have certain things in your vehicle when winter changes over. And I don't want to carry this stuff year round. I'm just going to be honest with you. I kind of look at my Jeep, my vehicle, it's kind of like just a huge backpack. And the other stuff that I carry in the vehicle, that's just supplementing whatever the mission is, whatever it is that I'm doing. Because I travel a lot. I'm in different towns, different cities, different states. I mean, I could be in 3 different states in 1 month, like I have this past month. And I just don't know what kind of weather I'm going to be, exposed to. And I actually tried to film this at home when I was preparing for this, but because of the storm damage at home, there's still tractors and bulldozers and excavators and chainsaws and blowers and all those things still running back home, and you would not actually be able to hear me. So I actually traveled 30 minutes to this spot just so that I could kind of go over this stuff. And I think, just like the Navy, we're going to go tip the butt and just talk about the stuff that I've added in to my kit. So your first line of defense against the elements is always your clothing. And that seems to be something that people fail to do, is they fail to put extra clothes into their vehicle. Now, it's not just, like an outfit. It's not just outfits, right? I have thermal socks and base layers, and I have thermal layers, mid layers. I also have my ECWCS Gen 3 level 7, which is good down to -60 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's say that there was an ice storm, which is a pretty highly likely scenario to happen where I'm at. And a lot of people say, well, in the South, people don't know how to drive, and I would tend to agree with you. A lot of people don't know how to drive here, but it could be a lack of experience. It could also be ignorance as well, because down here, sure, we may not have a lot of snow, but when it rains and the roads freeze over and we have black ice, it really doesn't matter how much experience you have going down the road. You can spin out and wreck your car. And it's pretty common for people to have to make a decision in those conditions. Am I going to shelter in place, or am I going to actually move? And so I want to be prepared for both scenarios as best I possibly can. Now, it's dangerous, I think, with this mentality, is a lot of people, their first response is they want to camp in their vehicle. Well, basically, this is nothing more than a freezer box when that happens. And you can actually die from sheltering inside of your vehicle. Now, if you do choose to shelter inside of your vehicle, there are some tricks of the trade, if you will. I always do have the extra clothes. Make sure that you vent the inside of the vehicle, because a lot of the new modern cars, I mean, you can barely shut the door. They're sealed up so well. So make sure you crack that window, because you don't want to die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Because a lot of people, what they choose to do is they take a candle like this one, and this is just a military candle, and it doesn't capture the heat very well. I mean, you can burn a candle in that scenario when you're inside of the vehicle. But I choose to instead have something like this UCO candle right here, because what happens is when I'm burning the candle inside of there, the heat is captured in the top here and in the glass, and it'll give off the heat a lot better than if you just have a regular candle. Another thing too, on top of that, I also like to have beeswax candles. This is the replacement candle for the UCO, and that brings up another subject. Sure, you need to have this stuff, but do you have extras? Because you don't know how long you're going to have to shelter in place. So if you choose to carry something like the Grail stove or a MSR pocket rocket or a jet boil, or maybe you even have the 2-burner like Coleman style set up, you know, do you have extra fuels in the vehicle to support those stoves? Because maybe, oh, and this is heat, and that's what I use to burn in my little Trangia stove here. I like to have options, and this stuff doesn't take up a lot of room inside the vehicle. And depending on how cold it actually is, some of these fuels don't burn very well in those conditions. So I also have my solo stove, which I can pretty much get a fire going in just about anywhere I go. And that's typically what you're having to do, is heating up water. And water is something that we'll have to talk about here in a little bit, because water freezes when it gets cold enough, and that can ruin things like your Grail. So before I get too far off track though, I need to kind of get back to the clothing issue. Number one, I make sure I have the clothes. Number two, I make sure that I have my sleep system with me. This is my MMS, the military modular sleep system, which is a combination of 3 bags. And they claim it will go down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit by itself, or when you use them in conjunction with each other, because there's 3 bags. You have a patrol bag, which will go down to 40 degrees. Then you have your winter bag, and then you also have a bivy bag, which is Gore-Tex, and y'all have seen me run the Gore-Tex bag before in the past. But another little free tip or trick, this is the military sleeping pad, and you'll notice I have cut it, and it's in the exact shape of the mummy bag itself. And what I do is I slide this inside of the bivy bag, and then I put the winter bag on top of that, and then I put the patrol bag inside of the winter bag, and that just increases the temperature rating by a lot. You will never have to worry about rolling off of your pad if it's self-contained inside of it. And I have been in, you know, sub-freezing, sub-zero temperatures like -30 for periods of a week long having this system, and I was perfectly fine. So, you know, down here, the biggest threat that we have is the humidity down here. And a lot of people that come from up north down to the south, they say, God, it just feels so much colder down here, and that's because of the humidity. It could be 30 degrees, but, you know, with 100% humidity, it can feel like, oh my God, the wind chill is like 50-mile-an-hour winds, bringing it down, you know, sub-zero temperatures. And it's the kind of cold that really gets in your bones. I mean, it hurts. And so this is something that I always have, is the pad and the sleep system in conjunction with my clothes. Now, that takes care of me. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting this stuff inside the vehicle, because this is how I load it up anyway, because I'm adding it to the kit. So, you know, I have my sleeping bag, I have my clothing, and it's not, like I said, it's not an actual outfit. It's all the other things that I would need in that scenario. But you also have to worry about taking care of other people, right? So what if you have your family with you? You got a wife, you got kids, maybe it's your friends, guests, whatever the case may be. Maybe you have these extra people in your life that you need to take care of. And so I have things like synthetic blankets. I have a wool blanket. I also have a moving blanket that goes inside of the vehicle. And then I also have the stuff that goes in my actual pack. So, you know, I carry my pack around, and I have a sleeping bag inside of there. And so realistically, if we were in that kind of scenario, I could realistically probably take care of 3 people where they would actually be comfortable, just using the stuff that I have here in the Jeep. And on top of that, if I had to, because you got to have a pace plan, right? You got to have your primary, your alternate, your contingency, and your extended plans. And so something else that I carry is the ability to start a fire, because typically in inclement weather, what are the things that you're not going to have? You're not going to have tinder, you're not going to have kindling, you're probably not going to have fire extenders, etc. So I try to prepare for that. And this is just a bucket of stuff that when I'm teaching, I might have some stuff left over. Like here was the bottom of a bow drill set, for example. I've got lots of, let's see. Oh, okay, I've got fat wood, I've got birch bark, I've got cedar bark, I've got poplar bark in there. I've got a mix of hardwoods and softwoods. And yeah, I could immediately start a fire, and then I could go and source the things that I need off in the woods or whatever the location is that I'm at. At least I can get that initial fire going, and you also need something to get it started, right? So in the winter time, let's say worst case scenario, when I was in, we used to carry these road flares with us in our pack. If you can't get a fire started with a road flare, you need to practice more. And fire is something you should definitely be practicing anyway, but there are other things that I switch to in the winter. This is a ECWCS fire steel. This one is the 1/2-inch fire steel. And it also, this is pretty cool, it also has a tinder source inside of the handle right there. It's pretty cool. You got 3 of them. They're kind of like the tinder tabs that Wazoo has, but they stay inside the ferro rod. And then there's also some Gorilla Tape in there as well. So Gorilla Tape is really good for starting fires. Oh, I almost forgot. This right here, this is shock cord. Shock cord is really good for maintaining a fire. So you can light the end of it and it acts like a candle. So everything on this ferro rod is for fire. Now, if it's below 30.2 degrees and you haven't had your lighter in your pocket, and I always just carry an extra lighter. This is the ECWCS sleeve. And I've also thought about, because it has these loops right here, taking some more shock cord and just making it a loop that goes from the cap to the base. That way I don't actually lose the top. But it's always good to have an extra lighter. And typically if I was in that scenario and I was getting ready to start a fire, I would go ahead and I would take this and I would just, you know, go ahead and put it in my pocket. And that way I would have it if I needed it. So I think I need to start getting some of this stuff off of here. And this right here is my junk drawer. It's like my kitchen junk drawer is what I call it. So when I need a place to put all the little stuff, you know, the extra stuff, maybe I'm going to an event and I need teaching aids, etc. This is where it goes. And so, you know, as I talk about it, it would probably be smart for me to take these products and just throw them into the junk drawer. That way I'm packing up as I'm going. So yeah, that just makes sense. Let's do that. So we've gone over the fuels, we've gone over a lot of the stoves, etc. Yeah, let's just be smart about this. So yeah, as stuff is disappearing off of the table, I'm seeing things that we haven't talked about. One of the things that I carry extra is these hot hands. These warmers like this. And these are super warmers. I don't like the toe ones or the hand ones or whatever. I mean, you can use those for sure, But these super warmers are really big, and you can put them inside of your clothes. You can throw them into your sleeping bag. When you're in the vehicle, they can just help warm up. And the more radiant heat that you have inside the vehicle, if you choose to shelter in place, the better. And so these are just a really good item for you to have as well. Now, water. Water is something that's critical because I've always had an issue with that over my life. I go to a place and I want to carry like a case of water with me, and typically, as long as the vehicle is running, it'll keep the water thawed. But as soon as I take it outside of the vehicle, it'll start to freeze up. And so one trick that we do then is we take the case and we put it upside down. So the water in the bottom of the bottle is what freezes first as it works its way down to the cap. So you could potentially get the cap off and not have to worry about a total, freeze up. You can still get some water, and then you can typically take that bottle, put it on your body somewhere to keep it warm enough so it doesn't freeze over. That's how we typically do it when I'm in the field. But I have had to cut bottles before and then place them into some kind of cooking pot like this, so that I can put it on a fire and then I can melt the ice if I have to. But that brings up something that I don't think many people talk about, and that's, do you have filtered products that purify your water for you? Now, Grail is kind of an exception to the rule, because on their website, you can look it up, they say that you can freeze the filter inside of here up to 3 times before the filter is deemed, unusable. And what I do in the winter is I take one of my Grails and I go ahead and I take it all apart and I dry everything so it's completely dry. And once it's dry, then I'll put it back together, and I will put one of these Grails in the vehicle itself, and I don't have to worry about it freezing up. I also have extra filters inside of the vehicle too, so that, let's say I did ruin one of the filters, I could at least change it over and use a brand new one. But I like having at least one Grail, completely dry. That way I don't have to worry about it freezing. Like, I know that it's good. As long as I can find a water source, or I can melt that water, snow, ice, whatever it is, in one of these, then I can use it. But then the problem becomes, well, where are you actually storing the Grail after you do that? Because you don't want it to freeze up. Now, something that we used to do when I was up north, like on the boundary waters in the middle of winter, is we had these little containers like this, and this only holds 14 ounces of water, but you put it inside of one of these. This is actually made by Granite Gear, right there. I looked them up, Granite Gear, and it's just a thermal design that will help to keep it insulated. And then I added this into the mix, and you put it inside of your jacket so it's up against your core and you don't have to worry about the water freezing. And that gave me an idea. So I'm gonna put this up. So what if I did the same exact principle, but I did it with my Ultra Press? Because this is 16 ounces of water. And what if I went ahead and fitted it with a lanyard so I could wear it over my neck and I could keep this up against my body? And I'm thinking, if I talk to Mike Simmons, which y'all have seen on this channel before, Homemade Actual, he's just really good at fabricating and making stuff. So I thought maybe we could make, the container sleeves that we could wear, inside of our clothing, and then we wouldn't have to worry about our filtration and purification process, because it would always stay liquid. It would not freeze. So I need some water. So these two right here, this is my Geo Press, and this is my Ultra Press. These are both the titanium models. I do not want to break these. I don't know if you've ever frozen water inside of a steel container before. When I was younger, we used the military canteens that were plastic, and we would literally freeze the water intentionally, and then we would wear them on our kidneys, and they would, you know, melt as you produce the body heat to do so, and you always had cold water to drink. But I don't want to do that with these. I do not want them to freeze over. So I'm taking a mental note right now that I don't want these in the mix. I don't want to ruin them. So until I actually make whatever it is that I'm talking about here, this system for this one, which I'm going to try out this winter, I need to make sure they're not in the vehicle, because it's real easy to forget about them, especially with what y'all's situation, because you may, you know, be loading stuff up inside of your vehicle and you put it there kind of like an insurance policy, and then you forget about it. And if it has, you know, water in it, which both of mine do currently, they could freeze, and that could potentially be a problem. So something to think about. But yeah, so make sure you have other ways to make sure that you can thaw the water, or that you can melt the water as well. So now that I've got all of that in there, we can talk about the other aspect of it, which is food. All right, a lot of people, they don't really talk about food, but food can keep you warm internally, right? You want that internal combustion engine going. So we want to make sure that we have enough food, not just for us, because one of the first rules of being a first responder is an emergency on your part doesn't constitute one on mine. All right, you got to make sure that you take care of yourself first, or you're going to be part of the problem rather than part of the solution. So make sure that you always take care of yourself first. But I also make sure that I have stuff for other people. So y'all have seen this one before, the ReadyWise 3-day emergency rations here. I mean, this is enough food for not just one person for 3 days. I mean, I can stretch this into a week easily. The only thing that I add to it is coffee, tea, hot chocolate, drink mixes, stuff like that. And then I use some of my extra stuff. You know, I can just give it to somebody and say, hey, here's a bowl, here's a plate, here's you a spoon, here's a cup. And I cannot tell you how many times I've done that for people, and they hugged me better than they've hugged their family members. Like, they were just so grateful that somebody had some coffee. I mean, literally just giving them coffee or tea, some electrolytes, some water, or whatever it is. And you'd be surprised, a lot of people actually don't drink water, which kind of blows my mind. A lot of people, they just got to have their Cokes, their Pops, their sodas, whatever it is. But being able to give them something else besides water sometimes, that's a game changer. So this is a kit like I would give somebody else, but I do have all of my food stored right here, and there's way more than 2 weeks of food for me. I could probably feed 2 or 3 people, depending on who it is, for a lengthy period of time, you know, especially if we, you know, had to ration it out or whatever. I could certainly do that. So make sure you have food and drink mixes inside of the vehicle as well. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else inside of here. I mean, as I load this stuff up the way that I normally have it, I'm just kind of looking around and taking stock of what I do or do not have, or what I need. And it's probably a good idea to have an inventory list to go with it as well. When I was in search and rescue, I did have a list that I kept inside the vehicle at all times. That way I would know what supplies I had used and what I hadn't. But the next thing that I got to think about with this is my pack. So this is my winter pack. This is my Aston version 2 by Hill People Gear. If y'all would be interested in seeing a video on my pack and what I do to upgrade my pack for winter, let me know in the comments. But I hope me just going through my vehicle real quick with y'all, just to show you the few things that I add into it, and I guess I should do a word about the stuff that supports the vehicle as well, because I didn't talk about snow chains and traction boards and shovels and axes and saws and all that stuff that I keep in here, because a lot of people just don't have the space in their vehicle to do that. But yeah, I keep all of that stuff in here, in my recovery bag right here. But the next thing that I'm gonna be doing is my pack. So if y'all wanna see me pack my pack for winter, let me know in the comments section. If you're honey smack digging the video, then like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and until next time, keep fueling those fires.